I have a 5-minute clip here for you which perfectly embodies the current state of UK politics and why Reform had such a good night in Runcorn and why the Labour Party are scrambling at the moment to work out what's going on. The Labour Party believe it's the economy, stupid, but it's not really the economy, is it? So we'll just have a watch of this clip. Watch these two go at it here, and I always do like a bit of Matt Goodwin because the left don't like him because he likes to quote facts. He's very intelligent, he knows what he's talking about, and for that reason he's very good for our side of the argument. But just watch this debate here and see how it pans out because it speaks volumes, I think.
Do you think people out there feel that the country is stable and calm? Because most people I speak to out there in the country are desperately concerned about the decline of Britain, about a country they no longer recognise, borders out of control, a state that recently is using taxpayers' money to make housing available for people who break our laws, a Labour government which, to be frank, doesn't seem like it's on the side of hard-working, law-abiding British people.
Well, I recognise your analysis and I understand why you're saying that, and I get that from people, there's no doubt. But the solution is to make sure the economy grows, so there's more money available for health and education, more money for keeping people in work, more money to make sure that this country takes its rightful place at the international table.
But the number one reason why voters across the Labour heartlands have just gone with Reform and Nigel Farage is immigration. It is things like the small boats. Labour does not have a credible plan for stopping the boats and fixing the borders. So where is Keir Starmer today saying, instead of just saying, I get it, how about leave the ECHR, provide an active deterrent, stop giving welfare to people who are breaking our laws, stop making housing available, moving to offshore processing.
It's exactly that kind of extremism that the British people reject. It's an extreme view.
Geoff, controlling borders is not extremism.
Leaving the ECHR would put us in the same boat as
Canada,
Russia,
Australia.
No, on the contrary. It would put us in a position of extreme reaction to the rule of law. And that's not something that any government has ever contemplated in the past. And the reality is that we need to ensure that we have not only a democratic society, but one that observes the rule of law. And if you go back to your point about boats, everyone feels strongly about the boats. Everyone wants to see controlled immigration. But the reality is that you have to do that with a strong economy.
Geoff, I'm sorry.
Much more important. You were telling me about what people think.
I'm not going to take lectures about the rule of law.
I'm not giving you a lecture.
When we have a Labour government that is willingly allowing 158,000 people into our country whose first act on entering our country is to break our laws, and then giving them homes and welfare, and you sit there giving me a lecture about the rule of law.
I'm not giving you a lecture about the rule of law. I'm telling you that we are a country that prizes democracy, prizes freedom of speech, but also has always observed the rule of law. And that is why it is important. It's not the case that the British people regard the boats coming in as the most important issue, as you're suggesting.
Immigration is the second top issue in this country.
What they regard as the most important issue is economic security, making sure that this country has a strong economy, that there are jobs for people, that there's training and education, a decent health service. Those are the things that matter to the British.
Geoff, I'm sorry, with all due respect, people out there are not just talking about the economy. They are talking about the hundreds of thousands of people coming into our country who are breaking our laws.
What I said
what you should do,
that is more important.
What I think you are symbolising is why the Labour movement is so out of touch with the country. Unless you fix the borders, it's not extremist to actually say the first thing a nation-state should do is control who comes in and out of that nation-state.
It's extremist to leave the European Convention on Human Rights.
No, it isn't.
That is an extreme
Everybody
point of view.
across Europe
Vladimir Putin.
Oh, here we go.
That's the position.
Right. So
the two countries that have left the ECHR are Belarus and Russia.
And lots of other countries around the world are not in the ECHR.
But they're in similar organisations with similar commitment to the rule of law.
Look, it is not. I'll tell you what's extreme. What's extreme is allowing criminals and terrorists, like the Syrian terrorists, who broke our laws, came over on a small boat, and was allowed to remain in the country because he appealed to the ECHR. And so the courts are putting foreign criminals ahead of British people.
What's the alternative?
I've told you.
Some sort of populist decision by people like you.
Populist decision.
Well, that's what you're saying.
I'm going to give you my alternative. Do you want to hear my alternative? Here's an alternative. We leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We reform the Human Rights Act. We have offshore processing, and we make it clear that we're going to put the British people ahead of foreign criminals and illegal migrants. If you put that before the British people, the vast majority of them will say, yes, actually, I want to live in a secure country. And if you continue to avoid this issue, here's what's going to happen. You won't just be looking at Runcorn and Helsby. Nigel Farage and Reform will take every seat in Labour's Red Wall. They will run through Wales next year, and you and I will be sat here, and you'll be saying, what about the economy? And I'll be saying, immigration matters. People want control.
And the really funny thing, I'm sure you'll agree, about that clip is that the Labour guy there just doesn't understand. Matt Goodwin keeps telling him over and over and over, immigration is a very, very big issue. Perhaps it's number 2 issue in all the polls, but amongst a lot of people in Britain, it's the number 1 issue, myself included. I think it's important to have a good economy, but it's pointless having a good economy if you don't have a country. And that's pretty obvious, I think. Now, on the economy and the arguments that the left are throwing up there, they are pinning all of their hopes on Rachel Reeves, and I don't think that's a very good strategy. Rachel Reeves is failing in a spectacular way, and it's going to continue to get worse for Labour as time goes on because she's baked in some really bad choices, and the only way to save the situation is to pull it all back, but they're not able to do that, and so for that reason I think the economy is going to get worse. It's perfectly reasonable to believe that the economy could get better, but it's not going to get better with the choices that the Labour Party have made thus far with Rachel Reeves, because they're in a doom loop of negative growth and stagnation, and so they have to make some big changes. And if they're not prepared to go back and to kind of wheel back what they've already put in, then it's not going to work. So it's quite strange why Labour are pinning all of their hopes on the economy when there's virtually no chance whatsoever that that's going to work out for them. And this kind of leads straight into Labour and what Matt Goodwin said in that clip there, being completely out of touch. This gentleman here that's arguing with Matt doesn't seem to understand the depth, and really it's bordering now on, I would say, animosity, because I am quite resentful of the fact that my taxes are going to pay towards people who land here illegally. Their very first act upon coming to our country is to commit an offence, is to break the law, and we're expected to shell out millions of pounds to these people and, you know, put them all around the country. And of course, the government's worked out that the hotels aren't good. So what are they doing now? They're just stuffing these people like sardines into these HMOs, or these houses of multiple occupancy. And this obviously isn't gonna end well, because these are dotted throughout the land, if you like. And as was recently seen over the weekend with the Iranian cell that was just living in a terraced house there with a few of them in there, I think this is a very, very dangerous route to go down. All in all, to sum up, I think that clip there perfectly encapsulates the current state of British politics. Labour are not listening. What happened at Runcorn and with the councillors, they're not listening. They actually believe it was a flash in the pan, and they believe if they get the economy right, that that's going to get them over the line. And, you know, even if they do get the economy right, I still don't think it's going to get them over the line. And every time we watch a gentleman like this come onto television, we have to be really thankful. We have to be thankful that these people come out and tell us exactly what they're thinking. Because we need to know. We need to know that the people who are in charge of our country just don't give a damn about illegal immigration. And more to that, when confronted with the reality of it, still don't even believe it. It's astounding when you think about it, really, especially after Runcorn. But as Mr. Goodwin said, wait till next year. Wait for reform to burn through Wales. Then they'll sit up and take notice. But I think by that point, the damage will be long past done. And, Labour are going to lose the next election massively because they didn't learn, and the Tories didn't learn, and the politicians don't learn, and the people in power do not learn. The British people do not want illegal migration into this country. We don't even want a lot of the legal migration. But those small boats are going to take down Labour just like they took down the Tories. Anyway, thanks very much for your time.